Hello, this is Through a Therapist's Eyes. You have found us on YouTube Live. If this is the first time that you found us on this platform, this is where we shoot before we shoot the show that you'll find on Spotify, Apple iTunes, and that type of thing. We are going to be talking about friendship. Uh, do we miss them? And there's actually a twist on that title. I don't know that you can understand from the title what we mean by that, or what I should say I mean by that. So that'll be a fun conversation that we're going to have about friendship. We haven't talked about that a whole lot, which we really need to. A whole lot more because, man, they're super valuable. And I find that a lot of people don't have enough of them. But we'll get into the show with that. This is where we hang out with you. You can give us comments and check out the show live. We do this every Thursday, about 6:15. We're running a little late today, but we usually are, John. What you say?
Yes, but I actually came early today.
John was on time today, yeah.
On time.
I was on time.
It was on time. This is Mr. John Pope hanging out with us. You can see on the cameras.
Hi.
And Miss Victoria Pendergrass. I haven't said Pendergrass in a long
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right.
My name doesn't have a T in it.
It just feels like it should, though.
It does not.
Hey, Chris, is your mic on? Is my mic on? He's asking me. I hope that it was not.
Very loud. I carried over there, and it was fine. All right. So we do this stuff before the show starts.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I do have a voice that carries.
Yeah, and you can't.
But I
it's
could
Pendergrass because.
I could talk quietly too.
Me too. My husband says that I can't whisper, that I yell whisper.
Yell
because
whisper?
I don't really whisper. But you got to respect the Pendergrass name because I am related to Teddy Pendergrass through marriage now.
And Teddy Pendergrass, John.
Oh,
is-
he was.
Oh.
My good Motown. He was wonderful. He was a great singer in the 70s and 80s,
Right.
and listened to his
He's
music.
all over it.
And unfortunately, he had an accident where he was paralyzed, left a quadriplegic, I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that was the bad news. But he had a lot of popular hits.
Well, I'm glad you're related to this
He's my
feller
yeah.
there now by marriage.
He's my husband's fourth cousin. Yep.
Yeah,
Well, that's cool.
he had a beard back in the 80s when
Yeah.
people didn't have beards.
Yeah.
So.
You've given me like five names
yeah,
before the
I
mics
love that
came
he
on.
gets
I don't
so
know
excited
anybody.
about it.
I don't know anybody. All right. So did I give all the updates for YouTube? I guess
Sure.
so. Well, no, I didn't actually. You'll notice on the YouTube that we've got a lot of different lights and maybe some different features. So a shout out to Mr. Jack Fordenberry, and you should check him out. What did you say, Jack? Your website was cdpmediainc.com, and he does this for a living. He helps you out with your lighting and your shows, and he's got a podcast, Better Business Owners podcast, on the same platforms you found this. Are you everywhere, Jack?
Not on YouTube.
Not on YouTube. Everywhere but here, I guess. Anyway. Ready when you are, Neil? Are we ready to rock and roll?
Ready.
All right. Let's do this. Hello, this is Through a Therapist's Eyes, where you get insights in your home and in your car by the panel of therapists. We have Mr. John Pope hanging out with us again this week, sir.
Hi.
And Miss Victoria Pendergrass. How are you, madam?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. It was a hairy day, but it ended up calm.
Yeah.
Calmer, I should say. But this is not the delivery of therapy services in any way. We do have a topic of show tonight for you that I think you're really going to enjoy. Friendships. Do we miss them? So we're going to talk about the idea of, I just hear people talking all the time that you don't have them out there. And I think that you and I could probably very much agree we would want more of them. And we think it's easy to make friends and lament having such a few of them and loneliness being a pandemic. I mean, there's so much that people think about in their relationships with friends that just missing them. And so the angle that I want to take actually is, do we miss the opportunity to have them, make them, create them, and maintain them? Like, what happens with your lack of friendships that I hear about all the time? So some questions. Do you know what a friendship really even is? I know that sounds like a silly question, but I've actually got specific thoughts about that. Do you know how to make friends, and do you really maintain them ever much at all? So we are on YouTube. You'll have to see on YouTube. We've got some different lights and stuff. I'll give a shout out to our guy sitting over there in the corner. His name is Mr. Jack Fordenberry, cdpmediainc.com. Did I get that right? He's shaking his head. Yes, and he has a podcast, Better Business Owners, as well. Just throw a shout out to him. He's helping us out with some lighting and playing around with this. And Jack, I'll formally say I appreciate you being willing to hang out with us and help us out a little bit, make John's face glow. It's glowing, John.
Radiant.
That's radiant. Yes. That's not the grease or anything, is it?
I don't think it is.
Okay.
I don't think it is.
Good.
What else we got? We got the sponsor, firsthorizonbank.com, I suppose, is their main way to find them. But they're a branch of banking in and around the country, based out of, I'm going to remember this, Memphis,
Yeah.
Tennessee. I got it right. And they have a good neighborhood banking system. I like the feel that I get when I walk into their branch and have a relaxed feel doing banking with them. It's been a pleasure to find these folks. What else? So contact it through therapisteyes.com is where we take your questions off the air. We'll respond to you. John gets upset if you give us a 4-star review.
5-star.
Has to be
5. Yes, it does.
Has to be 5-star reviews.
Absolutely.
It helps us out a lot, guys, to give us the reviews, the clicks, the thumbs up, the subscriptions to get found and to grow this thing. So this is the human emotional experience, which we do endeavor to figure out together. What do you think? Well, first, before we get to the topic, too, I should have really done this last week as well when everything was kind of going on, and I didn't. So on the show, we like to do current events and things, and boy, we've got some big ones kind of going on.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Big events.
What have you been saying all week?
I've been saying the world seems like it's on fire.
Yeah.
Right.
It's brutal out there in a lot of ways. So a heartfelt hello, and we're with you. If you're a praying type, I encourage you to join us in prayer towards the Palestinians, the Israelis, the Ukrainians. Folks are struggling out there in these world events that I think that we're all grappling with. And guys, I think, John and Victoria, I'd be curious what you would find, what your thoughts are. But I'll start us off a little bit with a quick segment on this stuff. In that, there's a term called secondary trauma that is really real. I've had more than one folks in sessions really tore up with this stuff, stressed out, anxious, worried, tearful. I haven't had it, but I know when things like this happen, people literally have dreams about the events. I mean, the traumatic reactions and realities are very, very real, and I want to normalize that.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No,
Go ahead.
No.
I think that it's understandable. I think are you talking about in terms of health providers in the healthcare or being therapists, a secondary trauma that way?
No,
No.
I'm
Are you talking about the kids?
The
and the
reality. Okay, so I'm glad you said that. Let me make it clear. Secondary trauma, in my mind, is really referring to all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Not many of us have been in and around the world in the Gaza Strip with a bomb that exploded in our neighborhood and street.
Right.
A very small percentage of the world population has. However, we have really, as a world population, experienced the trauma in dreams, in worry, in anxiety, in distress, in a secondary way, but in a very real way.
Well, I mean, yeah, when you turn on the TV or you get on the internet and you see videos of mutilated bodies and kids dead on the street and women and, families, I kind of compare it to 9/11. Those of us that watched it on the TV, we didn't experience it firsthand of being in New York or being in DC or all the places, but we secondary trauma of watching it and experiencing it that way.
Yeah, for those of us in the States, that was honestly, Victoria, I've kind of said for a long time in several ways, looking at the effects of social media in our lives,
that too,
and the way this has happened through cable news and whatnot. I really feel like the 9/11 experience, watching on TV in real time everything that was really happening. It was as though you were in New York City the whole day watching all of the events. And I don't think humankind has experienced that around the world before that event.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And the effect, I mean, we all remember how we felt. Just getting sucked into the TV.
Most of us remember where we were. Yeah, all that stuff.
All day long. Yeah, it was terrible. So, John, does that make sense about secondary trauma? Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a little more of the sense that let's say the DSM-5 definition of it, and that's what I was given. But I can certainly appreciate what you're saying. I remember when Kennedy was shot. I'm that old, and I was just 10 years old, and I remember that. I remember like it was yesterday. I remember when MLK was shot. I remember when Bobby Kennedy was shot. I remember seeing the monk being immolated, catching himself on fire in Vietnam, in Saigon, burning himself up to protest the war back in those days. And so it's a series of traumas that we take onto ourselves. And so I'm talking about my own self, but there's a sense that it's cumulative too. Don't you think?
Absolutely.
And of course, 9/11.
We know that about trauma.
Yeah.
Which honestly, people in the Middle East, folks around the world, I know we have an audience in various places around the world and there as well. Man, over and over and over again, these kinds of things happen in a cumulative way, affect generations. And this is biblical. I mean, it's gone back biblically. Long.
Well, and then plus not just that, but like the desensitization of it all. Like we're desensitized to because of social
I think that's
media,
how some people cope with it. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
I
Right.
think
especially in the age of like social media, where just because a video isn't shown on like the news doesn't mean you can't access a video like elsewhere. That's unedited or that's like all
so.
that
It's
stuff.
a pornography of violence.
Say again?
It's a type of pornography. It's violence, and see all the trauma, and by that I mean that it's exploitative. It's meant to paralyze people, to hurt people.
It's funny, John. I think it is. What do you mean by it?
To see the violence on media all the time.
So it's funny. I don't know that it's meant to be perpetrated as violence, but in this day and age with secondary trauma and all of the things that we have going on right now in our world and in the current events, interestingly enough, I'm listening to you, and we do have these events. I have several events in my mind that I know where I was. Like, I was in Respect's grocery store when the Gulf War began, and I heard on the radio the United States has executed the attack on Iraq. I remember these moments, and 9/11 is one of those moments. So, but in all of that experience that you had with the Kennedy experience or the Vietnam realities and the civil rights movements that were going on in the 60s, I mean, it was a very traumatic time, especially in these United States. I feel like the experience online and virtual intensity is very, very different than those big events like Pearl Harbor or whatever event around the world that is stimulating into your exact memory. This is saturation.
It is.
Well, no, that's exactly what I was saying.
Okay, well, I missed that.
Yeah, I was saying that there's a sense one becomes desensitized to with pornography, for example, of sexual things where the person can't have a relationship with another person.
Oh, right.
And
you were
so,
saying that about the pornography recently, but what you started us off with the experiences that you had.
Yeah.
And I'm asking kind of and stating, I think the saturation, like
we have that all the time. It doesn't stop.
So in your experience, how is that different than what you experienced with Kennedy? What you experienced with a few of those different marking events that were indelible and printed into your memory and your experience. How is it different now with the saturation? That's what I'm really keying in on.
This is what I'm concerned about.
Yeah.
I don't know if we become so accustomed to this that it does get to us, it does traumatize us, but at the same time, we are desensitized to it. We have to get more and more and more. I think in terms of videos and TikTok and Snapchat and all that other stuff, all those videos, it's so instant, it's so present. It engulfs our brains. And
so you know what's interesting? You just made a new thought with me that I think is really potentially pretty cool. I started us off by saying, look, people are experiencing this in my office, and can we suggest that that's a good thing? Because, Victoria, we know when people are really traumatized, the numbness comes out, the desensitization comes out, the lack of emotional connectivity with that. That's a really bad sign.
Yeah.
So is it not maybe a good sign that people are having dreams about this and are having, I mean, we're processing the emotion because we're saturated with it. Is that a good thing? Rather than, even worse, this desensitized, numb reality. You follow?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, yeah, I think I get what you're saying. I don't know. I'm it just makes me think about like school shootings, for example.
Right.
Or mass shootings in general, especially here in the States. Like they just nowadays happen so frequently that like, I know this sounds awful, but like I honestly like don't care. Every time one comes up, like
it doesn't bother you.
Yeah, like
much.
it comes up on the news, like, oh, there was a mass shooting somewhere, or I mean, I think school shootings hit me a little bit harder than like outside of school, but
because you spent a lot of time in schools, even
right, and I worked in a school, and so, but it's like, okay, like I feel bad for them for a second, but I know it sounds bad, but then it's like I go on with my life.
It sounds like it's not that you don't care. It sounds like that you move on, like pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like when things like Columbine or something first happened, where people. I mean, I wasn't around then, but.
Yeah,
right?
It's pretty stuck in my brain.
Yeah, but like that's what I'm saying is like back then it's more like people spent time, like you really like mulled over it. Mm-hmm. Even those that weren't directly affected. But now, like unless you're directly affected by these big life events, a lot of times we don't necessarily spend the time to like properly process through it.
Right.
We kind of just are like, oh well. At least it's not happening in my yard, you know, and then you kind of like...
It could.
Right, it could, but...
And it does. And I
it
think
does,
that's a part of what I'm suggesting, you know, that people are experiencing all around the world, you know, in such a dramatic way at this point.
I was thinking that you were going to the deaths, the violent deaths of the Israelis, and let's say with the hospital, with the Palestinians, and whether or not that came from the Israelis or did come from the like a terrorist group. The fact is that people died, and
right.
And there are a lot of homes that there's a child missing, or a spouse, or a son, or a daughter, or a wife or husband.
Mm-hmm.
Tell you what, guys, I'm really starting to feel like I need a friend.
Yeah, right. Like,
I need a friend.
You know, I think we need a friend.
We need a friend.
We get to do a whole episode on this
topic.
Yeah, we probably should.
And I think I want to tag us into what we want to talk about today, friendship, because there is so much that we can do with this. But I want you to know, really, around the world, wherever you may be, that this is a normal emotional human experience that I think you're probably having when you notice reactions to things that you wonder, why is it bothering me this badly? I've had more than one person in my office the last couple of weeks. I'm talking about tore up, like in states of distress. So I don't want you to think that you're doing something wrong, or this is weird that you would experience this. Like, look, you need to know that people are waking up early. They're having a hard time going to sleep. They're in a disturbed state. They're upset. They're having a hard time.
You know, Chris, I agree with you because I think I think that shows humanity.
Absolutely.
I think the one mistake that we would make is that we don't do something. We don't provide help. We don't give support.
Sure.
And so that grief, that disturbance, that anxiety,
follow it with an action.
With an action, yes.
Good, that's a good point, John. Yeah, I think that's a good point because people are hurting out there.
Yeah.
Whatever side you think you're on, if there's a side like the Palestinians are struggling, man, and the Israelis are hurting from all of this, and the Ukrainians for that matter, and the Russian people. I mean, I don't think they're exactly happy of everything that's going on in their wars and battles. So it's tough. I just wanted to really, really do a good segment here on the reality with secondary trauma and normalize that for you so that you do not isolate and be alone with the pain that you're having with all of these things going on. So let's talk about friendship. The questions that I thought were trying to provoke your brain into ways. See, we did a show on friendship a couple years ago with Craig, and the way that I think about friendships, I think that you're going to be really kind of surprised with a little bit because I put a lot of thought and practice into like guiding people in this area of life, and I don't think people guys really think about this. So I'm really going to be curious to talk about this with a panel of therapists to see what your take is and what your thoughts are, because I feel like I'm a little weird and different, at least since I've done that show with Craig a couple years ago, because he just didn't think about any of these. So I'm just curious how you guys are going to think about these. What do you think a friendship is? Have either of you spent a lot of time on the in-depth nature of these questions and this topic? Let me just start off broad to see what you guys are thinking.
One, no, I don't like research and stuff, like looking into it. I don't do.
Well, yeah.
But I see friendship as.
Well, but I'm saying broadly real quick.
Okay.
Is this something, I know this is something that you do in your therapy because we
Right.
all are dealing with social
yeah.
support networks and developing
Especially after the
relationships
pandemic
and all
and
that
stuff, yeah.
Right, loneliness and all. So I know it's a primary issue in therapy. But
like, how would I define what
but I'm asking beyond just the typical clinical work that we do with people. Like, how much have you really thought about the depths of operationally day-to-day friendship? Because I think outside of my work, like, I think about this a lot.
Nah, I'd go like halvesies.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I think
mean?
about it, but it doesn't like consume my.
Don't pay attention as much?
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
Because I think that's the norm, Victoria. That's what I'm getting at.
I mean, I'm a pretty observant person. So, like, yeah, if I'm at the gym, I might notice like friends and stuff like that and observe them, I guess. But I don't always do that. It's not.
You know,
the first thing that
I
pops into my
hear you,
head.
but those sound like acquaintances to me.
What?
To
Fair
observe
enough.
friends in a gym, is there somebody that you would go to the mat for? That you would?
No, he's saying how much time do I spend thinking about it?
Oh, okay.
And I'm just saying, like, out in like, yes, I might observe like a friendship out in public, but I'm not necessarily spending a ton of time outside of my job.
Oh, you're observing
thinking-
somebody.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm not necessarily spending a ton
I'm
of time
dense.
like thinking about the depths of friendship. No,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And I think that's but I think that's the norm, and I think honestly I want to change that a little bit, because I think it's that important of a relationship that on our priority list, God, self, spouse, kids, family, friends, and then work is the last. We think a lot about work, and we think a lot about our kids and our family and all the other relationships, but I don't think that we process through in an important enough way about friendships.
No, I think about my own friendships.
Yeah, well, I'm
Like
not saying we
that.
don't think about our friends, that we don't think about people.
So you're kind of doing a meta thing a little bit, though.
Go further with that. I think so.
Okay, in other words, it's the observance of how friends works, how friendships work,
Right.
and the systems that go on between that. And Yeah.
Right. We do that with family.
Yeah.
We talk about parenting all the time in parenthetical ways and abstract ways, and we think about good parenting and bad parenting. And I just don't think that we spend a lot of time
No.
in a, you say, a meta way,
It's
a broad way. Right.
Well, it's one of those things that just is.
Yes.
And
Right.
maybe it deserves a lot more depth to it.
You're putting better words on it. That's precisely what I'm saying.
Well, I have a PhD, so that's. I'm
That's
sorry.
awesome. That's awesome.
I'm just, that's bogus on my part.
I
but,
know you're
I'm
one of the most humble
BSing.
people I know, brother. No, but that's precisely it, and that's super unfortunate. That's it's because well, we'll get into it. We'll go along,
Okay.
but that's perfectly what I'm talking about. So let's get into what you were saying. Is this acquaintance or is this friend? What is a friendship?
A friendship, when you're an adult specifically, is when you walk up to a person and you say, "Hey, you seem pretty chill. Let's hang out."
Yeah. Okay. Well, that might be the beginning of a friendship.
A friendship is somebody that you walk up to and you haven't seen in 15 years and take off where you left off.
Yep,
Okay.
I second that.
Definitely.
I mean,
You're
friendship is a
asking us
lot of
for
things.
this
Friendship is trust. Friendship is connection. Friendship is, could be said like soulmates.
Friendship can be something that even a spouse or a partner doesn't know, or a child.
So what I get at here is I do get frustrated, honestly, is a little bit of a tell, how much people use the word. And John, as you jumped in at Victoria and you thought she was in a different
I
space,
always chewed her head
this
off.
is this is an acquaintance. This is not a friend.
Yeah,
You
there's
know,
a difference.
People will say we're friends. Hey, friend. They say my friend across the aisle. In Congress. At least they used to say that. Not now.
Probably not so much anymore.
Not so much anymore. Yeah,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Oh,
But
a
we have
pox on both their houses.
we have these phrases, and it's not friendship. To me, that's a really important word, and I actually have developed my own definition of that over the years, and it is contact with a person. I think a person of interest, contact with a person outside of the purpose point, right?
Okay.
And so people will have a relationship with all sorts of folks in groups or in organizations or in we live in the Bible Belt here, so let's pick on churches for a minute. Oh, we're friends. I know her from church. Or, oh, he and I are in a small group.
That's
and we're
networking.
Friends. It's networking. It's social. It's culture. It's group and group life. And that's all good stuff. But it's not friendship.
Bless
Right.
your heart.
That's what they say in the
Yes,
South.
yeah.
A lot of people around the country and world are like, what did that mean?
That's
Bless their heart is a
bless
way
your
to
heart.
is
Or
a way in the
bless
It's a
their
South
dig.
to like
Is basically say like,
set up a dig.
Uh-huh.
But but think about that. If you're friends with this person in the small group that you're in a church, what differentiates them from all the other people that you're not friends with?
but you
Only
still go to
being
church
friendly.
together.
You're friendly.
Right.
Friends to me is when you begin to do activities outside of the purpose point. Purpose point is how I know you. John, you and I would be more like friends if we went and watched a hockey game together.
Right.
Right?
And yes, exactly.
We're hanging out.
Yeah.
Engaging in activity.
Or if we went
I
to
know
the
you
gym
from
together.
And we
Carolina.
go and we would carry a beer and we'd stand outside the and we'd say, "Yep." Yeah, from King of the Hill.
He's like crap. Oh, this is from King of the Hill.
King
I
of the
thought
Hill.
you were going to my West Virginia roots, man.
Oh,
I thought you were
West
going.
Virginia roots too.
I thought you were going to the Yinzers there.
Yeah,
So it would be
Yinzers.
like, Chris, if you and I went to the gym together outside of work.
Right.
Because we, like last night, ran into you at the gym.
Right. We would be more friends if we went to
Right.
dinner like we were talking about doing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
There-
know,
and so you're talking in a sense because I like to think of you as a friend, but there's the colleague aspect of it.
Right.
It's very much there. And so there's a professional relationship that we have.
I think so.
Yeah.
So you're
I
saying,
think
so for example, like my two best friends I met in college. So the fact that they're my best friends, but the fact that they're my friends is that I did things with them outside of college.
Right.
You know, and even after, even though I graduated college a
little while ago.
I can't do math right now. That we still do things together, so that's what makes us friends.
Well, there's a lot of things that make us friends, but I'm just kind of...
Or that's your, like, connection between
I want us
the
to
difference.
think about what type of a relationship this is. And if it's exclusive to the purpose point, we're friendly, we're more acquaintances, John. We're engaged in this activity in a very friendly and kind and loving way. I have no problem with that even. It can be a really important engagement. But you're a group member to this person. You begin to develop a personal relationship with somebody when you get outside of the purpose point. And a perfect example that I use always with this is my buddy Joe. Hey, Joe, love you out there. Thanks for being my friend for real. He's been a friend for a long time, but it was funny because we met in the Cub Scouts. We were both dads, and then we ended up being leaders. And that's all that I knew from Joe, and that's all he knew me
now,
of.
he's an adult that you met.
Yeah,
in the
he's
Cub
a dad.
Scouts.
He's a fellow dad.
Okay.
Yes, you're right.
Thank you for the
didn't wear the
clarification, John.
little beanie.
Yeah, had to be careful. I wasn't hanging out with the kiddos. But Joe and I, we enjoyed each other and we talked to each other and all. But there was one particular moment that I like to tell the story of when we're sitting at the campfire, and his kid, he got up to go do something, and his kid came and sat down. And he got onto his kid. No, he's like, no, get up. I'm sitting down. Get up. I'm sitting next to my friend. And I was like, oh.
We're friends?
I didn't
know.
I didn't know.
I didn't know we were friends.
Right. And so then we went from that to start a routine after the Cub Scout campouts. We'd go to Waffle House. That was what we did alone, outside of the group.
Without the kids.
With the kids.
With the kids.
Yeah, we took the kids. But that formulated a friendship that grew from there.
So would you also say that a friendship is let me finish my sentence. Would you say that a friendship is when you begin to like genuinely care about someone as well?
Well, yeah, I think there's a lot to go into it, like I said. But I think
that's when you like deter the difference between just an acquaintance versus like
acquaintance
versus
colleague.
a colleague
there really
or
are
a
different
friend.
words.
Yeah.
Yeah. What were you saying, John?
I was going to, there's two things. I was going to say the origin of the word friendship is what we have Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. And so that's friendship. Philia is a form of love.
Right.
And it's a higher love. And so you would see that sense that if you're loving somebody, and it can be, it goes across gender, sexual, or whatever. It's very deep and profound, but it's an acceptance of one another. Now, I think the other thing is because of my military background, I see that also it's formed and forged in adversity. And
that's a big point.
Exactly,
Run with that.
A common adversity. Let's say, and that's why you have buddies in the foxhole, because that person has your back and your life depends on that other person.
You could develop friendships pretty quickly. Well, you can develop deep connections quickly, but again, that friendship has to carry forward,
and it has to be nurtured,
maintained. Yes,
but it's important. It's interesting to see how many reunions there are of people that have served in the military. Why is that? It's like it's even more important than a reunion, going to a high school reunion where you're very young, and you also, a lot of friendships are so important at that time. And
John, it's interesting that you also have important reunions, such as like the reunions of the crash. The airplane crash, Flight 98 or whatever it was. We, in New York, that was in Charlotte. You have reunions of Holocaust survivors and various. I mean, there are various types of reunions with big, tight, hard events that forge that friendship that you're talking about. But I'm maintaining it becomes a friendship when you begin to develop a relationship outside of that focus point.
It's not expecting as much. In other words, it's where you can feel safe to be with another person and share your ultimate thoughts. And
well, there's a lot of things like that. Cass online, what did she say that it makes? Well, I lost it. Real friends make life special, and I think it's a great statement. And you know, we just there are so many characteristics. I don't think we need to spend a whole lot of time on the trust and the love.
We're
and the
just talking about
appreciation.
like what in general a friendship
What is it and how to get them and how to maintain them and the importance of them.
I like your definition of it though.
Yeah.
Like where it goes beyond just the purpose of why we're together in the first place.
Right. It's important because then you can really build on the connection that you forge in friendship and have all of these lovely.
so it has to be nurtured.
It has to be nurtured.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
We would all agree. But again, if we're not really thinking, let me tie two thoughts together that where we started before and where we are there with that. If we're not on the meta level thinking about those relationships as a purposeful way and as an engaging way, it's like, you know, we're not nurturing them. We're not being mindful of them. We're not. And so let me go back and tell you why I thought of this title, Do We Miss Them? And this actually came from a conversation. Was it with you, Victoria?
Possibly.
We have a lot of conversations in
We
the
have a
hallway.
lot of conversations.
Actually, it wasn't with you. No,
Oh.
it was in a session. This was born in a session a few days ago. Actually, I remember now, because we were talking about how, like, look, at different stages of life, we experience the loss of friendship, and I think that contributes to the experience of loneliness that is so prevalent. So think about high school graduation. You develop friendships, and if you're not purposeful about it, boom, everyone just explodes in all these different directions, right? And then you think about, you know, when you have a baby. Victoria, you're right in the middle of it.
Yep.
You know, you get consumed by, you know,
I've been trying to hang out with my two best friends for like
be purposeful.
the past month.
Yeah.
Every weekend. What are you doing this weekend? Oh, we're busy. Oh, I'm busy. Like, oh, and then I get busy and I'm like, okay, what about this weekend? And like, no, literally for like a whole month, I've been texting one of my friends, like trying to get us to hang out.
I'm so glad you're doing that.
But yes, I get what you're saying about you have to be.
Same thing with retirement, just to
Yeah.
go a little further. People forget, like they leave their workplace and they go back home and they forget to be purposeful about maintaining that friendship. And did you have a friendship with your colleague, John, like you say? Because when you retire, you go home.
I've got a friend that
I've got a friend.
yes, you
Sorry,
got a
man.
friend. You got a friend. It's right.
You're
You
coming
can
off
keep
on
a
me,
tune.
man.
You could do a tune. He's in Billings, Montana right now. He teaches at the University of Montana, or I think it might be state or something like that.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but we don't have anything in common except, and he's a rock star. He's a musician. He wore a feather boa when he was playing back in the 80s and all of
Nice.
that. And he's about 10 years younger than I am. And he's an atheist, and I'm a believer. I'm a believer.
Oh my gosh,
okay.
just talk.
So anyway,
Victoria.
and he's never married. I've been married for over 40 years.
Lots of differences.
We are so different, but we both we have a common theme, and that is empathy and existentialism. And our whole friendship is based on that.
Yeah.
And he's just he's a wonderful guy, and
Right.
don't have a lot in common with him. But
You know-
we call each other once a week.
I love that, John, because when I did this show with Craig a couple years ago, he was kind of amazed, and I remember him kind of talking about, like, gosh, I never thought about, you know, being purposeful about this and how you make friends and what you actively do. And he's like, it just seems like it just happens naturally. You know, you're the friends that you have, and it does. There's a natural piece of this, just like dating. But the point that's interesting that you're describing with your friendship in such a cool way is, you know, you can have great differences and be purposeful about nurturing it,
Right.
and building it, and building that on respect of the differences and how you connect with things. It's cool.
I have a lot of acquaintances that have a lot more in common with me and share a lot more values
Fair enough.
with me, that I'm kind of an introvert. I don't have a stable of friends. I have maybe 5 or 6 friends that I can count on.
Yeah, well, that's what you need. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good place to interject. I think on a lot of times, we think about friendship, but we don't think about the level or the type of friend. And I won't spend a whole lot of time on this, but I actually, when I'm working with somebody in therapy with these relationships, I look at the scale. I have like a scale that I go by. And so it starts off on a low end. I can't talk with my hands with this stupid mic in my way. You start on the low end, right? And that's acquaintance. And just we know what acquaintances are. And a little step up from that is a fun friend. And those are
A fun
people.
friend.
That's what I call them actually. Those are people that you literally just have fun with and stuff. But there's a big line here that I call the trust line that you go over, and then you have people that are good friends, and that's people that you've invested in, people that you're good friends with. And then there's best friends where you're really intimately close and you share a lot with. And then there are intimate relationships, and that's not just sexual, but those are like, Adrian, my buddy, he's my intimate, close buddy. He's my life buddy. I know that he will be
It's
for the rest of my
communion
life.
of soul.
It's communion
Those
of
are
soul.
like lifelong would you say those are like lifelong friends?
Right. Family.
Potentially, yeah.
And
Yeah.
otherwise.
And I have a friend like that. His name's Kevin. Have nothing in common with him either.
What's up, John?
He and Vicky
See
are
a theme.
Yeah. I ended up doing their marriage and all of that. And now my wife is besties with her, and it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. But I grew up with him, and we were in junior high at the time.
Yeah, like I have a best friend who we've literally been friends since kindergarten. Actually, probably before kindergarten, like birth, basically. And still my friend today. She lives in Georgia. And it's one of those, like, we don't talk every day, but
Yeah.
when we do, it is like we just pick right back, or whenever we do get a chance to see each other, it's like we just pick back up where we left off.
Yeah, there are so many characteristics that are about valuing them. I mean, I like Jack's comment, right? Like, there's a public persona and a private persona that people have, and we got him on YouTube's who I mean by Jack. I didn't say John's Jack.
Okay.
You're John. He's Jack. But anyway, that you get beyond that when you're really relating to people. It isn't the public or personal persona. It's like, like dating.
Authentic. Yeah.
I did mean to say that way. Closer relationships, like family relationships. Your true, authentic self gets to be known when you're really in a more involved, closer attachment with a friendship. So there's so many cool things about it. Let's move on for the purpose of time, though, because I want to get to some things about, like, okay, so how do we get them?
How do we make friends?
Do we think in a meta way, John, in a broad way, in a if we zoom out? Like,
So are we?
How do we do this?
Let me clarify. Are we discussing like how do we make friends as adults?
Yes.
How do we make friends as kids, or how do
Yes.
we like? We're focusing specifically on adults.
No.
Okay.
Right.
We're looking at all of it.
Why not?
Well, because I'm just saying, like when you're in school, okay, like the prime optimal time to make friends is typically grade school and college, right? Grade school and college is where you meet. Let me say where it's easiest. Can I rephrase it and say where it's possibly easier to make
You
friends?
can say anything you want. You got an international
Yeah.
podcast to say, but I think I'm going to
Okay.
be disagreeing with you in a minute.
Probably. But I feel like once you get out into like the workforce or out into the whatever, maybe I'm thinking about dating more than friends, but I feel like it does become hard.
I don't want to poison your thought. Go ahead.
I do feel like it becomes harder once you're out of the school setting to make friends. But like at least that's where my experience in clients has been is, you talk to people, they're like, yeah, well, I have my friends from high school and I have my friends from college or lifelong friends, but like I haven't really made any friends as an adult. Is what I hear a lot.
And I'm not going to disagree with you, but
I think I am.
well,
But
bear
we'll agree
with
more
me.
than we
I'm
disagree.
disagreeing with her, but I'm just being nice about it.
Oh, thanks.
Okay. So, no, it's and this is, I'm teasing you a little
It's
bit.
okay,
because
John.
I
Keep
like
going.
it. Okay. No, you, the longer you live, you see, you're seeing this through goggles of a 20-something person.
30.
Okay,
But yeah,
you're 30.
thanks.
Okay.
No, yeah,
You
I'll
look
take
young.
it. I'll take it. I
Okay.
can be 20 something. That's
Okay.
fine.
Well, you're third decade. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, but it changes, and so you can go back and reflect back when you're in your 40s or 50s or 60s, and you see things a little differently. So that's all I was going to say.
Yeah, well, John, I agree with you, and I'm just taking a little bit of a different angle with it, Victoria, in my thoughts, because what I hear you kind of highlighting, yeah, you're right. It seems easier in college as well as school when you have a built-in like
Social
community
network.
right around
Yeah.
you. It's almost like forced upon you, and it feels easier to do then. But I'm going to suggest to you that it's
feel like
not.
I mean, I'm not saying that making friends in school isn't hard. I'm just saying that I think it's, in my experience with my own clients and their experiences, it tends to be more difficult to make friends
There's
outside of work, outside of school,
Yeah.
outside of all those other things. Like just
there would seem to be less opportunities for sure.
right,
because
and
in
maybe that's what I'm
school-
trying to say is that like the opportunities are not as vast as when
I hear this
you're
a
in
lot,
school.
but I'm jumping on it because it's so important to
Yeah.
realize friends will come and friends will go, and you need to find replacements. Let me say that again because I've thought about this a lot. Friends come into your life and they go out of your life. They come and they go, and that's a normal reality we all experience. John, that's what I think you were saying. Things change, and we need to be able to replace them.
In the
to build
seasons
on
of
our-
one's
and let them
lives.
go. You got to be
Yeah.
able to let them go and then replace
There's a
them.
natural progression, and so thankfully we have many opportunities all throughout the stages of your life to make new friends. But honestly, guys, I don't think we know how to do that. That's where, Victoria, I think people struggle,
Yeah.
particularly in adulthood, to like make friends. And we tell kids it's so easy. Just go and talk to little Johnny and make friends.
Not
Not
if
when
you
I
have.
have social
I
anxiety.
do, yeah. Okay, what is it? What is it you do?
Yeah.
With the connection there.
Yeah.
And how many of us don't have some sorts of anxieties and what?
Well, I would say the therapist. I don't know. Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
I'm going to let you take a wild guess. At
Oh, I
that.
don't know. So,
I'm gonna say she's wildly extroverted.
Yep.
yeah.
Did you have
I
a
would
thought,
say-
John, or no?
No, I think that I'm mildly introverted, and so it's difficult for me. And so I when I get done with this podcast, or if I preach, I'm like exhausted. Okay, because I'm pouring myself out.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I get that, and that there is a drain, and that's why purposeful effort with relationships, we're calling them friendships,
Yeah.
takes a purposeful effort, which drains you.
Right.
Well, and a certain level of bravery
Yes.
sometimes.
Courage and
Yeah, courage,
dealing
bravery.
with vulnerability.
And so, I mean, but we're talking about how to make friends. Like, I know that sounds basic, but find common interest.
Totally what I see.
You know, someone.
Victoria, I go ahead further, but before you go further,
Yeah.
because that's exactly where I think we need to be. I have those conversations with adults in therapy.
Oh yeah,
Seriously.
yeah,
So go
I do.
ahead.
Yeah.
yeah. No, I mean, you gotta. It sounds basic, but you gotta start with the basics. Like, find common interest in people, and sometimes that means going to events and going to things by yourself. For example, okay, the Renaissance Fair is in town.
Ren Fair.
The Renaissance Fair is in town.
For those around
In
the
Charlotte.
world, that's like a fair that's in the area where you
About,
go back
like,
to
medieval-
old
There,
days.
medieval
there used to
times.
be puke and snot were a thing at the Ren Fair.
Puke and snot
That's
in the
disgusting.
medieval days.
But for example, if that's your vibe, if that's your thing, then even if you go by yourself, like that is a great place to make friends, right? You go by yourself or you go with other people that you know. You meet other people who are dressed up like you are, or like
Cosplay.
yeah, and you or brave, and you strike up a conversation. Like, I like your outfit. You know,
Adults
where did you get it from? Or,
very
did you
much-
make that yourself? And then if it goes somewhere, it goes somewhere. If
Okay.
it fizzles, it may not be meant to be.
If
I
you're a
don't know.
guy that says that to a person of
John.
opposite, you're going to get in trouble.
Sure. Look, we have a YouTube comment that says, like, it's amazing to watch this 6-year-old get together with, his 6-year-old get together with another kid, and instantly they're friends. I'm going to maintain that adults don't tend to do that.
Yeah.
And that's because of these things that we get held back with, the vulnerability, that maybe sometimes the irritability, John,
or past events where you have been rejected before, and you're hurt.
gunshot,
And
it hurts. And
But it
all.
is
Like,
crazy when
we avoid doing that again. Yeah.
But it's so, I agree with the comment. Like, it is so interesting to see little kids, how they have no fear of, like, they will just go up to someone and say, hey, do you want to play?
No barriers.
No barriers. And then it's so interesting that, like, for adults, we can't do that. Like, we can, but it's very difficult for people to, like, if I'm sitting at a cafe or something and I see someone else that looks cool, looks interesting, I like their vibe, I like their style. I'm honestly even though I'm an extrovert,
So
like, I'm
reserved.
probably not gonna go up to them and be like, "Hey, can I sit down and have a coffee with you?" And like,
Right. It's not going to happen very often.
but if we
And
were
that-
2 kids, I would probably just go and be like, "Oh my gosh, like, can I?
They do.
Let's play, let's hang out."
I could see Victoria going up to somebody.
Yeah, I might actually do that in real life.
But think about it. That begins to happen in elementary school, and then by middle school, you begin to very much struggle with that
If a
ability
person
to reach
looks
out.
different, then that person's on the outs. And so,
Oh,
in
yeah.
other words, if you don't conform to what that idealized version is of what's cool, you're
You're screwed.
You're screwed.
It's true. It's sad, but it's really true. Just aware of the time. There's so much that we could talk about this. We need to talk more about this topic. So hold us to that, guys out there, ladies out there, with contact at throughatherapisteyes.com to let us know what you want to hear about this, because I need to keep this on the radar screen. What else did I really want to get into?
How to maintain it?
Yeah.
Can I add? You can tell me not to talk about this if you don't want to. I think a lot of times in therapy, one of the main questions I get, or that I work with people on, is how do you work with a friendship where it's like one-sided, where it just seems like I'm okay. So like, say John and I are friends. We hang out outside of work, right? Like, if I'm always the one texting John, hey, you want to meet up? Hey, you want to hang out? And it's never like vice
I'm always
versa.
going to dish you.
Thank you, John. And it's like
I don't
one-sided.
believe that, John.
Like, I get a lot of people that struggle, like, they're trying to make friends and they're trying to do these things, but then it's like
Emotions get in the way.
Yeah, well, yeah, it always seems like they're always they always say, like, I'm always the one that reaches out. That, like, we get along when we hang out, but like they never reach out and ask me. It's always me reaching out and asking them.
So
and
it's funny, Victoria, and I appreciate your courage in bringing that up. And you said that you have that in sessions that people talk about it, but I'm going to maintain even further that I think we feel that way just as people when we're relating to people in close relationships, especially. So if we're being honest, okay, let me back up.
Okay.
I love that you brought this up, Victoria. No, it's perfect, because I know people might think I'm crazy, but in the way that I look at this, I'm going to maintain that forming and maintaining, and as you say, John, nurturing friendships is super, super like meeting, greeting, mating, and dating and whatnot. The parallels are.
It does
are
feel like
really
dating
exactly
sometimes.
because it is. Like, let's be honest with it. It is.
Yeah.
You just raised feelings that are commonplace in close relationships, especially, and that has everything to do with, guess what? Emotionally focused therapy that we talk about in marriage counseling. There's an abandonment and there's an engulfment. And that was an abandonment perspective with the anxieties of, you're not calling me as much as I call you. You don't, it's like people feel very strongly about this in a lot of ways.
really think we need to do another one of these. I would like to also talk about if somebody leaves in a friendship, and let's say there's a betrayal.
Betrayal's another big word.
What do you think about that? So, my sense of it is that you might have somebody during a time of great distress, and you need that person, and you fully expected that person to be there for you. Not even fully expected them, but you would have been so happy if they had been there for you, and then that person says, "Well, they dish you or they discount what happened." For example, when my wife underwent a 13-hour surgery, and
boy,
yeah,
that's real.
She
right?
arrested 3 times.
Whew,
and I'm
crap.
up there by myself, and somebody drops by who's a friend.
Yeah.
And he and his newlywed wife came by.
Right.
And I said, I don't know where God is. I don't know where he is. I don't feel his presence. What's going to happen to my wife? He says, well, you just need to have more faith and believe more.
Ouch.
Yeah.
And you probably wanted to punch him in the face.
I wanted to punch him in the face. It's never been the same after that.
I hope that you did.
Yeah.
You know, John, yeah,
So-
that's a powerful moment. Thank you
He's
for
still
sharing.
a friend, but he's not.
But you've lost a certain amount of trust.
That you've
and
lost that intimacy.
There's a hurt that's
Yeah,
there.
right.
And, well, I guess I'll go there. I just had a little debate in my brain. I don't want to talk too much about that particular situation, but what that makes my brain think about is there are all sorts of circumstances where we see estrangements and, as you say, betrayals, and we hold resentments, towards people, and that can destroy a friendship, just like it can destroy a marriage. Just like it could destroy a family relationship. And how many times do we see these different forms in therapy? So I wonder what can be recounted there or recovered there, or, because when a friend betrays you, just like a spouse betrays you, it doesn't have to mean the end of the marriage.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think, and that's why your parallels to friendship and dating, I
Right.
just love that, because even like how we always say, how cliche it is, but how we always say like communication is key in a marriage, in a relationship, it's like it's the same in a friendship.
Yes.
Like, you got to be able to talk to each other. You got to be able to communicate. You got to be able to say like, hey, it pissed me off when you said that thing about I gotta have more faith, or whatever the case might be. Like,
That was the worst thing
in that moment.
In
yeah.
that moment. But, I've forgiven him.
Right.
But I still have a slight forget. It's still there.
Hey, you can forgive, but you don't have to forget.
Not completely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and we have another YouTube comment that says, by the way, it's buzzing today. That's awesome to see. You need reciprocation.
Yeah.
There's a balance in relationships. There are boundaries in relationships. There are also toxicity factors in relationships. Like, if you think about a lot of the topics that we've talked about in way of relationship, marriage, and dating, just like double that towards these types of relationships. Particularly, I think, in my scale at least, the intimate level and the best friend level.
Yeah.
And not as much, but still very much with the good friend level. We're probably really not talking about fun friends and acquaintances. I mean, these are those are not what we're really.
Now, I'm not
targeting
looking for those. Okay? I'm looking for
you're not
the deep relationship.
But I think it's situational.
What do you mean?
For
What is?
like what we're like, at least for me, like what I'm looking for in the moment. Like, currently, I'm not really looking for any like deep, long-term, lasting friendships in my life. I'm satisfied with the people that I have. Friends, like right now, I have a.
You have enough.
Well,
I've got
like,
enough.
Like, for right now, I have for example, I have a fun friend who I met at my previous job, but I feel like she's slowly becoming a good friend.
Right.
Like,
Well,
she was the
that's-
person that, we go to concerts together, we go to like stuff like that together. She's the fun friend. But now we have more in like we each have our kids are only like
just want
3
to
weeks.
have fun.
Our kids are only like 3 weeks apart, you know. So now it's
You got some
more
things in common.
building towards like being past that level of
Passing
trust.
that trust line.
Yeah, and now I feel more confident talking or not confident, but comfortable talking to her about like deeper topics. And so for me, like I almost would be okay with finding a fun friend who I don't necessarily have to give a ton of effort to,
100%.
or someone that I can just like work out with at the gym, and then like we don't have to talk to each other at all throughout the week, but we just like come to the gym together
that's
or whatever.
interesting. I like what you're saying. I don't know if that would be right for me.
That's what I'm saying.
I think it's okay.
Yeah.
To have the acquaintances, the fun friends, that can go deeper. You could have. I don't know how many people can have as far as deep and abiding friends. I don't know how many that is.
Oh, you can only have like you said, two, three.
Yeah, that's all I
four.
can handle.
I mean, that's all. That's because it just takes so much time.
And
But John, I think what I would like to say to you in that regard, with what Victoria's saying, that I love Victoria, is John. I think you do need to be purposeful about thinking about your whole network.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and sometimes introverted people do miss this in the sense of like, I don't want to put the effort out to make these friends and all. I'm only looking for a certain amount. But then when it comes time to play chess or when it comes time to play golf, like if you're close, the point I'm trying to make is you need to be purposeful about squaring out a certain level for each level. Like right now, I kind of need some fun friends. I don't have a lot of people.
I don't really have any fun friends right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have enough. I need to find a couple of people that I would enjoy. And I actually got a dude that's in a restaurant that I've met. He's a bartender there, or a waiter. And I think we're going to go golfing. I'm purposefully targeting that.
Right.
Because it's something that I do need in my life.
But then you're fine with it just sticking at that. Like, it doesn't have to go to the deep level of, like, tell me all your past traumas. But, like,
But that's all I want right now, like you had said.
That's kind of alien to my experience.
I told you I was weird about this topic.
No. You're wonderful.
Do you think it also has to depend or has to do with like where you are in your stage of life?
Well,
like as far as like what you want, sure.
Yeah, like I mean.
But let me tell you a quick story of why I've thought about it this way. There was a period of time in my life that I had just gotten moved, just become a parent. We had come to Charlotte, and I really didn't have really many relationships, and so I joined a softball team, and that began to build our social supports. Okay. But then later on in life, kind of as well, and I built some good friendships from that and all this and other. But then, remember we talked about the lost decade. Yeah. I turned around one day and I looked at my life and I'm like, dude, I don't have any friends. Like I don't really have people that I talk to.
Cats in the cradle and the silver spoon.
That's a big deal, man.
Yeah.
And I did so. I literally went through, and this is about the time that I developed a friendship with my buddy Joe, because I looked around at my landscape and the things that I was involved in and I was doing. And to your point earlier, Victoria, there were a lot of opportunities around. Mm-hmm. There really were. I had church people all around me. I had Cub Scout people all around me. I had all of these sports that my kids were involved in. I'm standing literally during practices and games amongst all of these parents. Like, there were opportunities all around me, and I began to specifically target like a few different people. Mm-hmm. And I struck out a few, like 4 or 5 people. It didn't work. I got rejected. If you would think about it that way.
Yeah.
So
it is like a form of rejection.
Did you cry in your pillow?
I did not cry, brother. I'm tougher than that for West Virginia. No, I didn't, and I wasn't upset. I didn't hold anything against people, but the point that I'm making is go, reach out.
I would agree.
Relationships.
100%.
And even if you're betrayed or if you're rejected or you're struggling, it's much better to reach out and do this than to sit back and feel lonely.
Okay, so then what do you say to the person who feels like they're continually being rejected every time they reach out to make friends?
I have clients like that.
Because I have clients like that who's like, they're like, I've tried the apps. Because like, I don't know if you know Bumble, the dating app, they have like a Bumble Friends.
There's a beginning.
Yeah, like there's.
Oh, they really have one.
Yeah.
They do, yeah. I've heard of that.
I was going to make some money because
Create
I'm
it.
to develop one.
Yeah, there is already one. And there's other apps, like there's like meetup.com and stuff like that where, to like meet friends. And I do have clients who are just like, we've tried that, we've done this, we've done that. And it's like, nothing is sticking. So then they look at me or, they look at us, they're like, what am I doing wrong?
Or they want to do the little projection
Yeah.
transference and make you a friend. And we can't be friends.
Yeah.
I think there's so much with that, Victoria. I mean,
I was going to say, we can almost do a part 2 for this.
well, and we need to, because you're bringing up a really important thing that we're not going to get to is the online component that exists with this. And but to your point, John, let's struggle with that for just a minute. Like, what do you do with somebody, that's really feeling that way, constantly, repetitively, chronically rejected? Because that is a thing.
That was something that's as a result of our post-industrial world. There was a book in the 1950s called The Lonely Crowd by David Reisman. And he talked about how there was a sense of anomie, which is you're anonymous. You feel like there's people all around you, and yet you don't have any connection, and people feel somehow ill-equipped to make that connection. And that's the problem we live in our society, I think, today.
100%.
100%. And so what one does, I think, in therapy, I try to build resilience.
There's a word.
Okay, and basically what resilience is that to be able to draw deep in oneself and to see one's strengths and possibilities, that one doesn't just go by the snapshot. One sees the whole experience of being a human.
Right.
Yeah, like you said, the human experience.
The human emotional experience. And guys, this is a big area of life. We need to taxi in for a landing today of friendship and the relationships. They're super valuable. So guys, give us a closing thought or comments, and I'll take us out of here.
Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. When you're trying to make friends.
Yeah. I think that, and develop a sense that you can, if you feel crushed by rejection, is that one of the things is you're stronger than you think you are. There's more resilience. There's more to you, that there's somebody out there that you can meet, and you just have to keep at it and be persistent in it. I think that persistence will pay off.
Appreciate you guys' comments and thoughts and conversation. It's a really important topic. Listen, I know that you are feeling lonely at times. It's almost a universal experience, it seems, at this point. And I hope that our discussion, our conversation, at least has triggered your thinking, triggered your thoughts, and lifted up your hope that you can really actually have friends. Yeah. We really don't realize how powerful they are. But listen, emotional support and companionship, simply people to have fun with, feeling connected to, being a part of a community, among other things, you've heard us talk about how valuable this is. So reach out, stay with it, deal with the vulnerability and the feelings and the insecurities, and enjoy the process of making these.
Friends are fun.
Friends are fun, but their friends also somebody that'll put his hand or her hand on your shoulder or give you a hug when you least expect it.
Absolutely.
Never mind. I'm gonna save it for another day.
Reach out in the darkness.
It's a whole nother thing.
All right, guys, listen. Awesome. Yeah, Victoria, we can go on. I know where you were
we
going.
could go on like another hour.
Thanks for listening. Take care. Stay well, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.